Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day recap for Monday, the 14th of August. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving any advice or recommendations. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only. So, quick theme of the day, and then we'll go through some stocks and as well as what the indices did today and where there's support. Some resistance to watch as well, but overall, we had a bounce today, and we were probably, you could say, a little bit hindsight 2020 that we were due for a bounce today. And we did get a couple signals on Friday. If you reviewed Friday's video, one of the things that I really reviewed with a lot of detail and spent some time going over is what we saw with the VIX gave us a little bit of a heads up. It was acting funny. And when I say funny, just a little bit different than what you normally see, right? So I'm not going to review that relationship of the VIX, but normally, I mean, these are not that complicated things. And it's kind of funny because, I had a bunch of people either on, just in social media in general who really try to overcomplicate things, right? So let me just say one more time. When the VIX goes down and the indices are down as well, that is a divergence. That's not how it normally works, right? Put that, put that signal when you get it and put it in your back pocket as something that's unusual. You don't need to have the reason for the gamma or, a million other reasons to, somebody told me, well, the VIX doesn't matter anymore. It does, and you can extract signals like that, but you have to be observant and you have to be, a little bit clever with noticing some of these things. All right. So I thought that was a great signal. And again, you can review Friday's video for that. I give out these videos free and I hope they're helpful, but it is what it is. Also, every time we see something like this, whether if it is a signal, right? There's no 100% certainty that something is going to work, and I know everybody always wants that, right? And there's a good majority of the time that something like that works. But the other thing is, right? You don't know exactly when things are going to happen, right? Best thing to do, in my opinion, with trading and with investing and so forth is to be objective and to be flexible, right? And be able to adapt to when you get new information that's on the tape, right? Because you could be bullish, you could be bearish, but if you get new information and something changes, right, the best thing to do, and that's where I've kind of learned from, we're getting a whole bunch of these 13F filings that are coming out from big hedge fund guys, but I'll tell you, the ones that have a really good track record at doing this. I've heard many times that they're flexible. They have the ability to change their mind when there's new information that's present on the tape. So that said, that's my little intro for today. But this right now, I think, the bounce is going back to what I said in Friday's video. I think a bounce to play for is really nice. I don't know, it's too early to tell if that's a change in trend. And one of the things that I didn't like today was that the breadth wasn't very strong, like all day today. And I think the IWM is probably partially responsible for that, which finished down on the day and was really, until the end of the day, was down, about 0.5% or so. But if you look at the if you look at the breadth numbers for today, you can, of course, we have our own indicator that looks at real time volume, volume of advancers versus decliners, so that you get kind of some sense of, not just the numbers, but really what's going into these companies in terms of buying or selling pressure. But you could see it, and I'll blow this up for you guys. Oops, a little bit so that you can see it. So for the S&P, for example, right, take a look at the 4-week new highs. Only 3% of the index. So it's not 3 companies, it's 3% of the index, right? This is it. These are the names that made 50 new 4-week highs, or I guess it's, a month, right? You only have 15 names on here, right? So it just tells you how poor the breadth also was coming into today. I mean, it was really the word I would use for what kind of breadth we've been seeing since the beginning of August has been basically disgusting, right? And you can track that. You know, we talk about the McClellan summation index and how you can track advancers versus decliners, and basically gives you a sense of what the market is doing. But look at how many names made 4-week new lows today. There's 91 names, right? And a lot of them, you know, bounced. I'm not going to go through every one of those names, but you know, they made a new low today and they bounced. And so you know, so it was not the best you know, picture for today in terms of like everything going right, but sometimes it doesn't have to be like that. You know, it's not going to be a perfect picture like giving you exactly what you want every time, right? You could see even for, this is what, 52-week new highs, this is NASDAQ 45, and then on the downside 96 new names that made new 52-week lows, right? Well, I mean, these are big numbers, and this is what it was for the S&P. There were 8 names that made new 52-week highs, and 10 names that made 52-week lows. So just kind of interesting to kind of comb through those stats, right? Just gives you a sense of how strong the market is underneath the hood. Now, let's go over the price action. Right. So notice where we are, and we've talked about a couple of things I'm going to point out here when we're looking at the S&P futures chart, right, is that we've had a couple of these textbook pullbacks, right, going back to the month of June, going back to the month of July, right into the 20-day moving average. Pretty easy, right, to see the pullback, and you know, buyers came and picked this up. Now, you know, what was kind of difficult here is 3 or 4 days, and especially we had the one day last week, I think that was Thursday, where we really tried to move higher in the beginning of the day till about 10 o'clock in the morning, and then reversed. So those days are not easy. There's no doubt about it, right? When you have reversals like that, they're not easy days to deal with. They're difficult, but that's what this market's going to do from time to time. It's going to provide starts and stops and so forth. So what I like about this is we held the bottom of value, and I also put a video out yesterday about how you can use the value areas to trade, and I specifically mentioned in that video last night about the bottom of value, right, and also the 50-day moving average. You know, if you like to use you could mention also that the 50-day moving average worked here too. And I do like when the moving averages line up with the bottom of value or the top of value. But yeah, so for now we're still inside the month. We're still inside the value area for the month. Could that change? Of course, right? And then we'll have to be more defensive if we break this. But for now, of course, one day is not a trend, but you know, this is how things have to start this way, right? So you got to bounce. We stayed inside value for the whole day. Not too much all that exciting for the S&P, but basically had a hold where it needed to. Where it was a little bit more exciting, I thought, was the Qs today. Now the Qs, now again, this is where you have to adapt. I really thought that this virgin point of control was going to be taken out. We're either leaving it for another time, or we're going to start to move away from it. Right. And we are going to have to deal with overhead resistance here in the Qs. So again, nice to get back above the 50-day moving average. That was a little bit of a barrier for the day, right? You know, a couple times today, right, we had difficulty with this. This, you can't see it, of course, on the 5-minute chart, but that's right around where the 50-day moving average was. So, you know, people make a lot of decisions, right? It's one of the reasons why, by the way, that I have the moving averages on my charts, specifically the 50-day. Why? Because a lot of investors make decisions based on whether something is above or below the 50-day moving average. So maybe you don't care what big institutions do, right? I do, right? Because I know that pushes around price action. But you could ignore what institutions do and the price action. That's fine. You know, there's other things that will, you know, the pure looking at price will tell you too. But I like to have a little bit of a hint, right? And I know that around the 50-day moving average, the price action is going to be whippy from experience, right? So it's tough to say, you know, after today, what we're going to get after this, because we are going to have to deal with overhead supply. I did take a position in the Qs this morning because we broke into the value area. And right now, this is what's called the 80% rule. When you start a period below value and you break into it, right, there's an 80% chance that you can go from one side to the other. right? So again, it's not 100% chance, but it's a pretty decent rule. Now, again, this is going to have to contest with some resistance with this 200 period moving average, but so far we're inside value. Right, IWM, as I mentioned, was the underperformer of the day, but that's holding where, I mean, look at the nice hammer bar. Also, 50-day moving average coming into play right at the bottom of the value area. Again, this value area, right, on the daily chart, this is derived from all the activity, all the price and volume going back from the previous month, which is July, right? And that's where we're getting that that bottom of value level, right? And notice that it did make it into the value area for the day. So that support to watch for tomorrow, for the rest of the week, depending on what price action does right now, is 190.43. We also saw, some things that were going on this morning, which I thought were interesting, I forgot to cover this in Friday's video, but the dollar reversed a little bit, right? In the beginning of the day, this was up about 60 basis points. Still finished very strong, but it seems like the market is kind of dealing with this stronger dollar for now. There is a VPOC up there that's 28.80. Again, in a perfect world, we would take that out. Price would take that out and get rejected there. We don't know if that's going to happen yet. Don't know if that VPOC is going to get taken out. And then TLT was down a little bit, but didn't crater, to the downside. This is going to be interesting. This was rejected. Price was rejected at the bottom of value. So I don't think, overall, looking at these indices, and I will go through some more charts, but I don't think that we're out of the woods in terms of, we know that August, again, I hate to repeat this because everybody is saying this, but it is what it is. August is a weak seasonal month. So you have to be on your toes, and sometimes you also have to take off some trades that may look good one day, but understandably, you may get a reversal at any time when you're dealing with weak seasonality like we are and higher yields and a stronger dollar. All right. NVIDIA was the star of the day. This was very interesting. Look at where, this thing broke pretty decisively, speaking of the 50-day moving average, but really impressive action today. This was up 7%. Again, it's still going to have to deal with overhead supply. Really 449.59 is going to be your resistance. Remember that level 444, spot 59, also the top of value for the week, right? There's going to be, that's resistance. So this made a heck of a move. Notice that it went a little bit lower pre-market, but it held this bottom of value and rallied pretty decently. A couple other stocks, right? SMCI. I did trade this one today. I just noticed that, that there was such strength in the semiconductors today. And if we go back to the spreadsheet, you could see that the semiconductors were the best group today, and they rallied 3.6% today from the open. Software names also had a nice day. Tech, steel, on the back of the U.S. Steel and Cliffs, possibly negotiating a deal, possibly there may be another suitor for U.S. Steel, and then a few other areas participated. But again, it's kind of funny too when you look, right? Everybody's starting to really, really like energy companies, right? And noticing the relative performance, right? It's a way it works sometimes when everybody starts to say, geez, I'm not interested in tech anymore, right? They all of a sudden lead. It's just the way that the market works. When everybody gets super negative about one group, right? Sometimes it comes back with a vengeance, right? So SMCI had a nice, try to break out here at 10.15, failed, right? And then found support at the bottom of value perfectly. And I put this on Twitter. I said, watch this level 260. And this is what you want to see when you break value. Look at the nice green bar here, and a little bit of a pickup in volume on that, and it continued to kind of to trend for the rest of the day. So not bad. A couple other names that I'm watching, and I did go long some Apple today. Looking at how this is, this is pretty deep below the 50-day moving average, and a little bit washed out in the short term. So I'm basically just looking for a bounce here. right? And it did close above the value area, which is what I wanted it to see. But really, if it breaks back below 177, then it's definitely, that's where I would get out of the trade. But this thin value area, usually when you see a very thin value area like that, usually there's a decent move coming. Again, not 100% of the time, but there's a good chance. So I'll stay long this with my with my stop right around the bottom of value. All right. A few other names too. I traded Amazon today just for a quick scalp. You know, same thing. Started at the bottom of value. It started to kind of move up, and I just traded that through the top of value. If you go through some more names, LRCX was actually some call activity. Kind of gave me a little bit of a hint on this one. I like the daily chart. This was a recent strong earnings name, you know, rallied all the way up to 726, and it's all the way down here, you know, was about 100 points lower than where it topped out, and it found support right at the 50-day moving average and top of value. So a name in an uptrend that's dipped, right? And I took advantage of that, and I bought that and was able to take a couple targets, and I guess this was the 5-minute today. Yeah, and I took my first target, my one target right at the top of value 666, and I'm still holding a small position in that. A few other names. We could talk a little bit about the metals names, right? Spilling over some strength from the U.S. Steel as well as CLF. Interesting. I didn't look at this at the end of the day, so this is a no-no for me, right? I said I wanted to see if this is going to close above the value area. It closed right at the top of value. So no, I did not go long this name. I said, hey, I'm going to wait to see where this thing closes. So I will watch it again tomorrow because it did close over the 200-day moving average. That's a good first step, but really it's got to be decisively over 107.46. It did close just above there, but this is splitting hairs. I wanted to see more of a full green bar on this. One name that I do really like is RS in this space. This is Reliance Steel and Aluminum. This, I believe, is the real leader out of this group. You know, nobody talks. Well, I don't want to say nobody, but hardly anybody talks about this name. You know, one of the strongest names that you'll see in the commodity space. You know, companies, right? So Reliance Steel and Aluminum made a nice turn here at the support level, bottom of value. FCX, and I bought a little bit of these. Saw some calls. We saw calls in this name last week too. You know, it's not at a bad spot. It's not, I wouldn't say this is an A setup, but this is, you know, coming down into the 50-day moving average and a bit of a hammer bar here. So again, it's a couple times now where we've seen bullish option activity, which you know, I don't think has really worked other than for an intraday move, but them coming back with this name down to the 50-day moving average, I thought it was good enough for a shot. One other name too, you know, I still favor Google and Meta. You know, those are names that had good earnings, you know, out of the FANG names, if you want to still call them that. And I would watch, this got rejected a couple times last week, very close to the top of value. So again, I have no trade on in this, but I would be watching this 131.43. Salesforce was another one someone brought up to me too. Watch to see if we can get above 211.77, but be careful here. You know, this could also be our rejection level too. All right, so the bottom line is one day is not a trend. This was a really nice bounce day and a nice, you know, the close was particularly nice in a lot of names. But you know, in my opinion, stay on your toes, you know, in terms of watching your risk, right? And you know, keep the FOMO in check. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow. And thanks for watching the video. Please like and subscribe if this was useful to you.